As you probably heard by now, Brian Thompson, the CEO for United Healthcare, was gunned down by this sexy young Italian stallion right here named Luigi Mangione. Luigi has been receiving a lot of praise for his actions because he's taken down a villain in many people's eyes. But what if I told you that this isn't necessarily a good thing? Stay tuned and let me tell you why. Luigi Mangione is a 26-year-old Italian man with some thick-ass, wide-ass eyebrows who knocked off this sentient septic tank right here. From the information that I've been able to gather, I've kind of come to the conclusion that Luigi's motives are pretty much just stemming from him not being able to fuck on hoes and get super duper yoked at the gym. Okay, that's too much of an oversimplification. Let me lock in real quick. Luigi had chronic back pain that was so bad to the point to where it would put him out of commission for days on end. He ended up needing surgery on his lower back, and from the looks of it, like, this shit looks really fucked up. I'm not even gonna hold you, bro. Now again, I don't fully know the whole process of like what he personally went through, but knowing the US healthcare and health insurance system, it had to have been fucked up. Fucked up enough to send this nigga over the edge and put a hot one in Buddy's dome over here. Ricky! Now the reason why I think Luigi taking matters into his own hands is bad is because it's a sign that society is sick and dying. Our systems of justice consistently and intentionally shit on the working class, minorities, and the disabled. Like, healthcare is so bad right now that it completely breaks barriers as far as like class and race because it affects everybody. Like, this country is built on racism and bigotry, and if the issue is so bad that everybody's just saying fuck that, let's side with this nigga, you know it's bad at that point. And you know why that is? It's because healthcare is for profit and will fuck you over no matter what you look like, where you come from, or how much money you make. Corporate greed sees no colors besides green, and these rich dickheads will do whatever it takes to get their money. Whether that's insurance companies using AI to accept or deny claims. Also, AI is very racist in most likely classes, so yeah, that's very fucked up. Or withholding the money that they got from Trump's tax cuts and then laying off a whole bunch of people and then claiming that, oh, we're making the most money we've ever made before. Like, look at all these bands I got, nigga. Even though they didn't really even make money, like, from their business, they just got a big ass check from Lil Dick Daddy Trump and said fuck you to thousands if not hundreds of thousands of workers that keep the company well oiled, and then they put responsibility on the people that they didn't fire, and then that just leads to even more niggas being overworked. Oopsie, I got a little off track there. Let me log back in. Vigilantes are the result of a broken society that is filled with injustices. We live in an oligarchy. A country where a very, very small portion of the population is in control of everything. This type of social dynamic is what led to the French Revolution, and it's inherently a bad thing because the people in charge are usually rich, and the richer you get, the more out of touch you are with reality, and the weirder you get in a lot of cases.
If I was fucking young girls, I promise I'd have been arrested. I'm way too famous for the shit you just suggested. But that's
I like when you like this, Daddy. Daddy, I like when you scrambling and scraping for shit.
No, I got no.
Speaking of rich niggas that are out of touch with reality, let's talk about my favorite rich nigga in fiction, Bruce Wayne. Batman just might be the most famous example of a vigilante in modern media, and there are those who critique him by saying, oh, he's just a rich white man who beats up on poor people and mentally ill niggas. And while it is somewhat kinda a bit of a fair analysis, it's also a lazy oversimplification of what like the Batman ethos actually is. And that's because of movies like the Dark Knight trilogy. Batman does beat the tar out of like poor people and the mentally insane, but he also beats the fuck out of like people like the Court of Owls, which is essentially like the Gotham City version of the Illuminati. The problem with Batman is that he gives these two groups of niggas equal beating. Batman does not hesitate to reset a henchman's central nervous system, and it's fucked up because these are the people who are like just trying to make a living and make ends meet for their families. People don't normally turn to crime because they think it's fun, they do it out of necessity. Anytime somebody steals, sells drugs, or sells their bodies, they do it because they have to, and that's why I'll never look down or judge anybody that commits these kind of crimes. I love Batman and all, but this nigga's logic and morals are completely out of whack, bro. Because if he really cared about Gotham and his people, he wouldn't be pile driving a single father of 7 onto like some hard ass concrete and then sending the nigga to the hospital. And I know these niggas' healthcare is way more fucked up than ours, so like it's even more of like a flaw in his logic. Like, what the fuck are you doing, nigga? And this is the biggest problem that I have with vigilantes. Like, they're reactionary beings who often lose critical thinking due to the rush that they get from doing what they think is right. In Luigi Mangione's case, I think that he did things as right as you can in a situation like this. Like, this nigga was going to use a bomb, but he ended up saying like, oh, I don't want to hurt innocent people, so like that's good, I guess, you know? Like, he's ethical with like this unethical situation, you know? Quick side note, why the fuck did this nigga not dump his gun? And I don't think he was wearing gloves either. Like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And like, this nigga has thick ass, bushy ass eyebrows. Like, why would you not think to like fade them bitches down, like put a guard on a clipper and like trim them hoes? Like, what am I doing? Why am I trying to assist with the murder? Giving niggas ideas. Now, I want to say this right here. I'm against the death penalty because I don't think we as human beings have the capacity to be able to determine who lives and who dies. So, again, I don't support Luigi killing Brian Thompson. However, I don't blame this nigga for doing it though. Luigi is a very young man, but he was unable to live a young man's life due to his physical health, and the systems that were supposed to help him refused to help him, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. But this makes me ask myself, do bad people deserve to die? It's something that I go back and forth on because of how I feel about the death penalty. I don't believe in the death penalty because of its very apparent discrimination towards black people, but what about situations like serial murderers and child predators who have an overwhelming amount of evidence that say that they did the crime? And like, I still don't know, honestly, because it all comes down to the failure of the justice system and our government failing the American people. In my mind, I can't really justify taking someone's life when they were allowed to wild out for years on end before they were arrested and put on trial. If we lived in a world where the police actually did their jobs and if prisons actually were used for rehabilitation, and then if an individual ends up like making it out of rehab but then he still ends up doing some crazy shit, like, then I'd feel more comfortable with like the death penalty, because at the very least, nigga, we tried, you just keep fucking up. But unfortunately, we don't live in that world, so I can't get behind the death penalty. And you know what's the saddest thing about Luigi packing up this nigga? All of this could have been avoided if he just decided to not be an asshole. This nigga could have just been like a slightly okay person. Like, you don't even have to be a good person, just don't try to fuck over every single person in America. Like, how was that hard? And also, I do think that Luigi is not a complete saint or like perfect person. Like, and I don't even mean this in the sense that like, oh, he's human, he makes mistakes too. I mean it in the sense that this nigga is an Elon Musk stan. But given those circumstances, I still do think that he's an example of what happens when a vigilante is an overall good person. Like, yeah, his politics are a bit misguided, but like, if a right-wing nigga were to become a vigilante, it'd be best if they were like him, because he's putting his frustrations onto the source of the issue, unlike other niggas that get fed up with society. And that statement might make you think, well, what happens when the wrong kind of person becomes a vigilante? Well, that leads us to my next point.
I came looking for booty.
You came looking for sex with an underage boy?
Oh no, I ain't come looking for no little boys. I ain't got no milk, no cookies, nothing. I came looking for man's butt.
A man's butt? Excuse me?
We live in a society that will use just about anything to justify being violent to another person or group, which honestly makes this clip funny as hell in my opinion.
Violence can never be used to address political differences or to address a substantive difference or to try and prove some ideological point. That is not what we do in a civilized society. That was true in Butler. It was true in New York City. It's true anywhere. That is not how you make progress in this country.
Yeah, buddy, we don't use violence in a civilized society, but what's going on in this flick right here? Like, can you explain that to me? Violence is normalized pretty much all over the world, from music to video games, TV, movies, and like especially here in America, where you can go to Wally World empty-handed and walk out with an air fryer and a fucking AR with a scope on a random Tuesday. Now, I know that statement about violence being too normalized in media and like video games and shit is a bit of an old head take, but violence being so prevalent in our entertainment is just a symptom of the real sickness. Media is a reflection of what's going on in society, so therefore media cannot be the cause of violence in said society. And do you want to know what the real cause is? Capitalism and white supremacy. It's always these two things. Anywho, what happens when a society that justifies violence towards others is also a society that is an oligarchy? Well, the little people start picking up their guns or whatever is in their inventory, put their little vigilante capes on, and they start attacking the big people. The poor eat the rich. I don't know why they keep doing this shit, but like, rich niggas don't learn their lesson, I guess. I don't fucking know. Now, during these times of rebellion, many of the real revolutionaries are either assassinated or put in prison, and the only people left to lead the charge are pretenders or people who aren't as strong as the real niggas. And due to a lack of leadership, the movement can go like one of two ways. The movement will either get watered down and niggas will start taking deals from the feds, or total chaos will ensue. And after the poor are done eating the rich, they'll get lost in the sauce and they'll start eating themselves. Now, to further bring home this point of vigilantes getting lost in the sauce, I want to talk about Chris Hansen's To Catch a Predator. So, To Catch a Predator was a Dateline NBC TV show that would run sting operations on child predators. They'd have people pretend to be minors and arrange meetings at a house, and instead of getting cupcakes from like a little boy or a little girl, Chris Hansen would pop out and be like,
"You freaky frog! You're a freaky frog!"
Is seeing these freakazoids realize their life is ruined hilarious? Absolutely. But at what point do we stop and have a conversation about what we're promoting? Like, this dude is sensationalizing and profiting off of child molestation. Like, that doesn't sound remotely right to me. And the crazy part about it is, like, this show most likely would have continued being put on air if a Texas public official didn't end up eating a fucking buckshot for dinner. This show did result in some arrests and some prison sentences, but there are some people who ended up getting off scot-free because some judges felt like things might not have been handled correctly, or because things might have just been dramatized in order to boost ratings and get more people to like tap into it. Chris Hansen is an example of a bad vigilante, and unfortunately he spawned a bunch of copycats who are doing an even worse job than he did. Fast forward almost 2 decades and we have YouTubers and streamers trying to imitate Chris Hansen, but they don't have anywhere near the resources, knowledge, or common sense that he did. And you also got to keep in mind that he was also lacking in this department too, so like, this makes the situation even worse. If the niggas who set up EDP had any kind of sense, they would have had the police involved or handed the evidence over to them, but they didn't, because deep down these niggas really don't care about bringing anybody to real justice. They just want the clicks and the clout from the video. And as time has passed, we see the degradation of what To Catch a Predator's actual purpose was. Catching a predator and sending them to prison isn't the goal for these niggas anymore. They're just using these predators as a way to get clout, feed their egos of being a better person than the predators, or using this situation as a way to act on their desires to be violent. In my opinion, they're just as bad as the predators, if not more, because again, they're like profiting off of child molestation. Not all of them have violent tendencies, but it's still morally bankrupt to me, because there's something so sinister about making money and broadcasting this kind of content to the masses. Like I mentioned before, this kind of dynamic happens all the time. It's not exclusive to like revolutionary movements. And to just list off a few of like progressive movements, you've seen it with the civil rights movement, Black Lives Matter, and Me Too. I guarantee if you ask niggas like Farrakhan or Dr. Umar why they haven't had any like assassination attempts on them, or why they haven't been locked up on some bullshit, they'd absolutely lose their minds. Okay, well, Lewis did have an assassination attempt on him, but it was Malcolm X's daughter, Kabila Shabazz, because she thought this nigga killed her dad. And you know what? That honestly helps my point. The reason why these kind of people haven't been taken out is because the government doesn't see them as a real threat. So they'll let them keep putting out their pseudo pro-black messages that are filled with misogyny and ignorant conspiracy nigga shit. And you know what? There are some things that I agree with Dr. Umar about, but you know what? Fucking broken clock is right twice a day, goddammit.
Fight back, nigga! Fight back! Fight back!
Holy shit, Rose. As I'm writing the script for this video, I'm asking myself another question. Is violence really necessary in order to bring change? And in a perfect world, it isn't necessary. But we don't have the luxury of living in fucking La La Land. Violence should not be necessary in order for the average American's needs to be heard, but because Democrats are completely out of touch with their voters, Republicans are comically evil, and big corporations are arm deep in both of these niggas' assholes, violence just might be the most viable option at this point. Like, that's how it might have to be, honestly. Fuck. Riots are the words of the unheard, or whatever OG said over here. I'm gonna write it up on the video, on the editing. Yeah. And you know, it kind of seems like violence worked in the case of Luigi. Like, United Healthcare is at least addressing the issue that many people have with them. I don't know if it'll actually amount to anything, but these motherfuckers are for sure shook. And you know what? It shows that we are not as powerless and as hopeless and feeble as they make us think that we are. And like, I hope that this situation doesn't spark a bunch of people who decide to try and assassinate billionaires, because they're not going to be like Luigi. The attempts are going to get sloppier and even more half-baked, and the chance of innocent people getting hurt or killed is going to increase significantly, because people are not really going to care. It's going to be another case of people trying to copy Chris Hansen and like doing this shit for clout or attention, and really losing sight of what really sparked this in the first place. But like, instead of beating up predators, they're going to be taking somebody's life, and potentially innocent people's lives if they're not careful. I really hope that Brian Thompson's death is enough for them to get their shit together, but who the fuck am I kidding? These greedy ass bitches aren't gonna learn until it's too late for them and everything's fucking burnt to the ground. And it really fucks with me, because we live in a society that does not value life, even when it comes to children's lives. We're still having mass shootings, school shootings, in a place where kids are supposed to feel safe and learn and be with their friends. A few days ago, another mass shooting in Madison, Wisconsin. How can we as a country put ourselves on such a pedestal and say we're such a powerful country whenever we can't even protect the youth? Like, we're putting bans on abortions, bans on fucking TikTok, an app where bitches is shaking ass and motherfuckers are selling fucking Rose toys and bullshit reusable toilet paper. Like, what the fuck are we banning that app for? Oh, why are we banning that app before we ban assault rifles? Before we put restrictions on who is and who's not allowed to buy guns? Like, you can buy guns at Walmart, Dick's, fucking Sports Academy. I live in the Midwest, and there's just gun shows where niggas can just go in that bitch and buy damn near any kind of gun that they want. And it's just like a room, like auditoriums filled with firearms. And there's no kind of regulations, like no kind of stipulations on who can go in and out that bitch, unless you're a fucking felon. And you know what's fucked up? I saw that in Texas, they're gonna try and ban the selling of sexual, like, sex toys in stores that are not explicitly like adult stores or like strip clubs. But yet again, I can walk into a fucking grocery store and buy a fucking gun. What the fuck are we doing? So I just kind of went off script, and like, I had a bunch of other shit I wanted to get into, but I'm feeling a little too cynical at the moment, so I'm just gonna end the video right here, y'all. Like, y'all know the deal. Like, sub, comment, all that good stuff. Subs, mwah, I love you, baby. But yeah, man, that's the end of the video.